Many leaders know how to perform strength, but far fewer know how to heal in private. Today, we explore part two of the integration of shadow and self, forgiveness, and faith based leadership.
Mhm.
Why true leadership may begin with the parts of ourselves we try so hard to hide. We have, of course, the fabulous team, Sallie Wagner, your personal alchemist, and Mindy McManus from Mindy Executive Coaching. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we had such a fabulous response to our part one,
Yay.
and we are so excited. We're going to literally pick up where we left off, which was Sally telling us Jesus asking Peter, "Do you love me?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll give some details about it because it'll make better sense. So this is after Jesus arose, and he's on the shore, and the disciples are out fishing. They come in, they see him, they begin talking. Pardon me. Jesus is, they're having a grill out with the fish that they've caught, and Jesus says to Peter, Peter, do you love me? And in the Greek, it says, do you agape me? And agape is like the highest form of love that the Greeks recognized at the time. And Peter answers and he says, yes, you know that I philia you. So he answered with a lower form of love. We think
Like
of philia,
Phileas
yeah,
instead of agape.
like
Interesting.
brotherly love.
Yeah.
And Jesus asks him again. And the parallels here are striking because if you recall, before the crucifixion, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And we'll see in this story, Peter is asked 3 times. So the second time, Jesus says, Peter, do you agape me? And Peter says, yes, you know that I philia you. And then Jesus asked the third time. And this third time, he says, Peter, do you philia me? And Peter is a little bit annoyed because he realizes, perhaps I'm reading into it.
Yeah.
And he answers, yes, you know that I philia you. And each time Jesus has said, feed my sheep. And so Jesus is calling Peter to leadership.
Yeah.
And he's meeting him, he's showing him that grace of you didn't come to this level, and yet I'm coming to your level to extend this grace to you, and I'm asking you to lead. And so I think that is a fabulous illustration of leadership, the grace that leaders show, and the grace that they can show to themselves as well, that we meet ourselves where we are, and yet we realize that there is at the same time a higher calling.
I love that. I love the fact that, I mean, it's Jesus. I'm not going to, you know, correct Jesus. But I love the fact that he asked 3 times.
Yeah.
That it wasn't as once, okay, he got the answer, he listened to the answer, and he listened to what was not being said,
Mhm.
checked again, and got confirmation that what he had heard was indeed correct, what was happening. And then the third time he met him where he's at. And I think that is a fabulous example, Sally, of faith in leadership.
Mhm.
Because you may be operating, and oftentimes in leadership, and both of you have had such an extensive experience at the executive level, right? That we often in the C-suite or in the executive level have information that not everyone has. So sometimes our level of faith or our level of conviction or our level of direction
Mhm.
differs from those under us because they're operating on their faith on us, right? Not having all the other information, which is
Mhm.
really interesting because I trust Jesus had more information, right, than Peter. So especially when we bring in faith in that mixture, right?
Mhm.
I think it's really powerful to make sure that in the process of calling others into leadership and meeting them where they are, and when it differs, right? When your level of conviction, when your level of understanding, when your level of faith differs, I, I think it's worth the transparency, the conversation of transparency, saying, listen, here is what I'm hearing, right? You're reaching conviction level 7. I am at a 9. And I can appreciate that there's reasons why I'm at a 9 that I cannot begin to disclose or explain. But I think it's important for people to understand that there is a gap without judgment. What do you think, Mindy?
Well, when we think about the story that Sallie just shared with us about Jesus asking Peter the same question 3 times. And, it really comes down to the conviction that he's looking for. But it also reminds me of, like, Sallie, like, you have this great book. It's called Reboot Your Thinking. And Peter always had this wrong way of thinking. Even when Jesus was trying to wash the feet and be a role model, Peter said, no, you are not going to wash my feet. So Peter chose to go against some of the grain that Jesus was trying to do because he didn't have the right mindset. He didn't have the right thinking. And so it's about helping people, not just meeting where they are, but helping them to know who they are and whose they are. And that reminds me of the book of Gideon. And Gideon was he was in the Old Testament, and God came to him. Now, this guy was shaking in his boots. He was more scared than anybody else because they were being attacked. So he's going into a room and he's hiding, and he's doing his work where nobody can see him. And God comes to him and calls him a mighty warrior. And you know what Gideon does? He's like, no, I'm not. I'm the worst of the worst. I'm the least of the least. I'm the this of the this. Who are we to tell God who we are? God tells us who we are. God even went to Gideon to say, Gideon, my mighty warrior. So I really would love to get back to like your work, Sallie, and really helping with that thinking and helping to change that thought process. So when God does call us, when God does speak to us, we go, okay, I'm ready. But if you really do look at all the characters in the Bible, even Moses told God that he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so going back to the shadowing thing, who are we to say we're not good enough when God calls us better than enough?
I love that. I love that because oftentimes, and as women, we do this a lot. And I don't mean to call on the patriarchy or anything like that. It's just, we kind of all know it, right? That women, when we are given a compliment, right, it is expected, and oftentimes we will either lower it, you know what I mean? Oh, it was nothing, or it was the team, or it was, this fear, as you said, to just say thank you. And trust that they're seeing something that you may not be open to seeing, out of self-judgment. That is so powerful. What a great set of examples. And when I'm still with the agape and with the philia, because one of the things about the Greek gods, and this is where I love that Sallie studied theology, and Mindy, you've studied the scripture, the Bible, at great length, and I'm studying mythology. Actually, I went back and I did look at the difference, because I have done a lot of work with mythology. And when you look at the Greek gods, and I do not know, aside from the Christian gods in the Greeks, because it links directly to philosophy, in the story of the Greeks, the Greek gods were flawed, and it's not that their flaws were celebrated, but they were understood. And listening to the two of you right now, it's really the first time that I thought of characters in the Bible as flawed,
Mhm.
right? Not that I didn't think they were beyond that,
Mhm.
but I guess is really understanding what is being said,
Mhm.
opposite to just reading the words,
Yeah. And
right?
what God is trying to tell you is that He will take anybody flawed to the core and He can turn them around. That's what God does. That's what Jesus does. He takes them and He helps to turn them around and helps us to see ourselves the way that He sees us. Because we have to remember there's an enemy out there and he's prowling around like a lion, wanting to keep us from loving God
In
and
loving ourselves,
loving
and yes, of
ourselves.
course, loving God, but loving ourselves. And you said something really powerful, Mindy, that people often turn to scripture to find themselves, but really is to find God. And in finding God, you find yourself.
Mhm.
And it's in doing that reflection, we go back to, Marcus Aurelius, right? And that it may seem like rumination, but it's really reflection, it's really meditation, it's really asking the questions and allowing for the answer to come.
Mhm.
In one area that you and I touch on, Mindy, was you speak a lot of God, of Jesus, and I speak a lot to God. Like it's a constant conversation all day long, right?
Mhm.
But it's in the pausing to hear the answer or to knowing when God is answering. We were just speaking of Sally's husband, whose journey she has shared and is part of a miracle in Angels on Earth. If you ever will retouch it, because it's such a moving, story and journey, really, that sometimes we forget, or our body makes us forget things to protect us, right? And is that God speaking to us? Like, how do you know when your faith is answering? And that's a question to the both of you. I am dying to know.
Go ahead, Sally.
So you mentioned my husband, and for him, I think everything, and for most people who don't know, a little over 3 years ago, he experienced a catastrophic brain aneurysm. And it was a very bleak outlook in the first days, and continued not very hopeful for 2.5 years. And since last September, he's making an amazing recovery. And now that he's communicating and we're talking, he's exploring all of these things, and he truly acknowledges that his recovery is a miracle. And he talks about it, this is Matthias number 3, as if he's had different lives and different experiences throughout life. And he's saying, this is an opportunity to be a better person, to express his faith. He's actively asking, what can I learn? How can I be better? And so I think when we experience those, in this new book I'm writing, the sacrament of defeat, we experience that. We experience those dark nights of the soul. Mm-hmm. And so we ask ourselves, and the only way out of that is to connect with the divine, I believe, because that's the only thing that gets us out of the valley. Otherwise we kind of wander around in the valley. We pitch our tent, which we should never do. Yeah. We're meant to keep walking through the valley, right? If you think about the words of that psalm, yea, though I walk through the valley.
Oh, let's get the quotation, the citation for that, or quotation.
It's Psalms 23.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my favorite Psalms. It's my favorite Psalm.
Yeah. Because before we go, Mindy, because we often hear the quote, when you're going through hell, keep on going.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to
Yes,
be like the
but.
buffalo. When
Yes,
a
but.
buffalo sees the storm, he goes into the storm. He doesn't go away from it because he knows if he goes into the storm, he'll be in that storm in a shorter period of time. So you got to be like the buffalo.
And you
so,
know what? Back to Sallie, because I know I keep holding it, just preempting Mindy's brilliance. But a huge point in Sally's story is that, Sallie, if I may I?
sure.
This is something we've disclosed before to the public, and it's part of the story, right? She went from having conversations about organ donation in the morning. Like, this is what the medical team, this is where they were at. It's like they were making last rites arrangement and organ donation. And Sallie said, no, it's not his time. It's not, and based on her faith, right? Like, talk about David Goliath moment, right? Because, and Sallie will tell more about it, and trust me, it's truly faith alive and faith in action. So, but I did not know if you knew that part of the story, Mindy. So I will
I
not
didn't. I
interrupt you any
appreciate you
further.
telling. No, I appreciate you telling me that. And Sallie, kudos to you because I mean, you've got your faith and I have my faith, and everything that I've been through. I lost my husband 6 months ago. I lost my mom 4 months ago. I have every right to be in bed and not get up and not move. It has been, and I don't know how anybody gets through any of this without the grace of God. It has been God and everyone's prayers that has wrapped themselves around me, that has gotten me through every day. Literally the first 3 months, God came into me and lifted me up and worked through me because I couldn't do it myself.
Yeah.
And it is my faith that has gotten me this far. And I know, like, I have no doubt in my mind that God is there with me every day because he shows up every day. And what happens is we have so many miracles that are happening that we don't even notice.
Everyday miracles. And the thing that links us, aside from, the fact that we've locked arms to, champion goodness in the world, and we're colleagues and collaborators within PWT, is that we're also in leadership. So when all of this is happening, we're still having to show up for others, which kind of is that leading with faith, right? It's not just that we're bringing in faith into our everyday leadership mandate, right? Is that we're bringing in faith into our lives so that we may continue to lead others. So when we're saying leading with faith, it's not just, we're now going to pray before a meeting, right? It's about asking for the guidance to lead others and trusting that is coming from not ego, but coming from a greater reason, in a greater purpose.
One of the things that I've learned in this journey with God is nothing belongs to us. We own nothing. My mom didn't belong to me. My husband didn't belong to me. My house doesn't belong to me. Everything is God's. I'm here to steward those relationships. I'm
I love
here
that.
to steward my business.
To be the custodian and the
We're the
steward.
custodian and the steward. God
Wow.
owns everything else. So if you realize that everything is God and we're just here to steward, it kind of takes a lot of the pressure off.
Don't shoot the messenger.
But I'm just saying, it takes a lot of the pressure off. When you realize
Yes.
nothing is yours, nothing belongs to you, you own nothing except your relationship with God. That is the only thing you own.
And that's to a greater, I don't like when people say for the greater good, because that just means
It's not
I
for
don't
the
know. It can be easily misconstrued, right? Like I'm doing horrible things for the greater good. It's like, no, you're not, right?
Yeah.
But is aligning, which I guess is part of what we're developing in our series, right? Is how do you align your earthly mandate, right, as leadership that you've chosen, because we've chosen to lead, and that's not coming from ego. The minute that you take care of others, be it your family, your husband, your employees, if you own your company, or if you're a supervisor, or anytime you're in contact with plants, lives, animals, all of it, you've chosen leadership.
Yes.
and and that is what we're learning. How do you align that, not with the greater good, because in our global world it differs so much, right? That's like saying ethics or morals, like, well, that depends the context that you live in. um but how do we align it with creation? How do we align it with our creator? How do we align it with goodness, right? Which again is such a subjective, construct, right? And that's the part where I have always been so hesitant to speak publicly of my belief system and my faith, because I understand that that works for me, right? Like, and works within, not just works for me, but works within my story, works within my teachings, works within my, my legacy, right? And it may not work for someone else, and that doesn't mean I'm right, they're wrong. But how do we align our actions to a greater message? And that is the reflection, that I would love to invite our friends and listeners, which, back to earth, we are now on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, and also streaming on Facebook and LinkedIn. More Than Success, every single day is 5 conversations with all of the PWT mentor experts in a truly interdisciplinary platform. And sorry, I couldn't help myself. It is my job to promote us. So, but how do we do that, ladies? If you could give us a prompt, for us to start our week, because we begin our week with spirituality and love and in aspiration and inspiration, and that is the purpose of our Monday at 1 Eastern track. um what is a reflection that we wish for people this week?
Go ahead, Sallie.
Well, I think reflection is the key. I think, we want to ask the questions, we want to reach out, we want to connect with God, and then we want to listen, and we want to reflect. And I think as we reflect and we ask more questions, then we can get rid of those layers of ego. There's the technique of 7 layers deep. You just keep asking questions. Well, I think we can deceive ourselves all day beyond 7 levels. And so you just want to keep asking those questions, to get to the genuine answer, and then listen for the genuine answer. And then I think we can get away from those ego expressions that you talked about.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to understanding that you have ego expressions and what they are. So first, you've got to identify them and then work to overcome them. Because a lot of us have a lot of that ego stuff going on, and we have no idea how we're coming across to other people. So ask a friend, how am I showing up? This is how I want to show up. Am I showing up that way?
Ooh, how humble. What a deep exercise in humbleness, which is part of what confession is all about, right? Which we're going to have many more conversations on that. um but yeah, is, I think my intention for the week will be to journal, as you said, Mindy, everyday miracles, and to try to journal
Mhm.
when when there's a message for me that
Mhm.
perhaps I am just rushing through and
Mhm.
I'm not seeing it. So being a bit more intentional, I
Mhm.
guess, on the signs you receive.
Yeah. And there's another Bible verse that God says over and over, be still and know that I am God and that I'm here for you.
Be still. They're in mindfulness, which is really my cornerstone in this conversation.
Mhm.
My training of Taoism and Buddhism and mindfulness. There's the concept of surrendering, right? And detaching yourself from outcome.
Mhm.
And I would love to hear what your interpretation and application of surrendering would look like from
Mhm.
from both of you. Sallie, if you could, we keep putting you at the forefront. And then we just copy what she says, whatever she says.
I think surrender is a beautiful concept, and we see it repeatedly throughout Scripture. And as Mindy said, the characters are flawed, and yet ultimately they surrender to God's will. So we see Moses surrendering, we see Jesus agonizing in the garden, and yet he surrenders and he does what he's there to do. So I think when we give ourselves up to that higher good, that will
Mhm.
from the divine, then
Mhm.
there's such a beautiful sense of completion that
Mhm.
we've done what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I love that. So I've been kind of like you, Carolina. Like I want to hear from God. I want him to like have an opportunity to give me a message. I like to listen to the Bible while I'm sleeping. So I hear it before I go to sleep and I hear it when I wake up. And
Hmm.
I usually, so how I'm doing my Bible study now is I let God wake me up when he wants me to read a certain passage in the Bible. And then I'll go and I'll read that passage in the Bible, and it is exactly what I needed for that day. And
Wow.
it's been an amazing adventure doing that with him. And like this morning, I woke up to Psalm 36, which was exactly what I needed for the place that I am today. So we also need to be, we also need to open up to receive what God has to say to us. Because a lot of times we're way too closed. So that surrender is within every single journal and prayer that I write down, is that I surrender. Because when you surrender to God, there's a verse, and Sallie, you might know the actual scripture, but when you surrender to God, you must first surrender to God, and then it's surrender to God, reject the devil, and he will flee.
I don't know. I have trouble with the devil, to be quite honest. Yeah, there's there's a there's my next book.
We all do. We all have
Um,
problems with him.
yeah, we're going to explore that as well, evil and all of that, and because I don't know, I think it has to be heart, mind, and soul, right? Like, is my brain still being the devil's advocate. Yeah, it's reconciling all of it, right? Like, in yes, I need to find the words for that,
If the
especially.
devil was able to get a third of the angels and influence them and talk them out of leaving heaven and leaving God, think about the thoughts that he puts in our heads.
Yeah.
And we're not even as strong
Yeah.
as those angels are or were.
So true.
Mhm.
Hmm. Lots to think about. So
Lots
the
to think
intention
about.
for the week is that reflection, is the listening, is a more intentional
Mhm.
um conversation and dialogue and
Mhm.
stillness. and surrendering. That was a lot for an intention for the week, but take what lands with you, right? That is that's the point of this conversation and in our intention for the week. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Sallie
You.
and Mindy, for your love and kindness and guidance and all good things that we intend intentionally to awaken in the world, in ourselves, in our hearts and minds. So
Can I
thank
do a
you.
quick little plug for Sallie?
Absolutely,
So Sallie
absolutely.
Wagner has a website. She's got a book that you can get for free, and it's called Reboot Your Thinking. So
Oh,
I would highly recommend that because she's got these great little tips and tricks that can help you start to reboot your thinking so you can align with God's will for you.
absolutely. Part of our 1 million woman challenge giveaway. So love it. Thank you, Mindy,
Thank
for
you.
your heart and your mind, and thank you everybody. Have a lovely week and do connect with us and continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Until next time.